Welcome to the adventures of self. Conversations with ordinary and extraordinary people as they explore what it means to be self-expressed. Come on in. Join the adventure.
So, welcome, Chloe Bourjallia, to the Adventures of Self.
Hey, Taylor. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. We both live, I would say, rather adventurous lives.
I would agree. Yes.
And when people hear that word adventure, people think like, oh, you must be daredeviling and flying out of planes or jumping out of planes and maybe flying out of planes. Wow, that'd be really adventurous.
Never done that yet.
and doing really sort of risky, dangerous things. There's kind of this assumption, and you and I were talking before we got started, that adventure can be anything.
Yeah, that's right. Adventure is kind of like, it could be a physical thing. So, very often when you say, oh, I'm adventurous, people think, oh, you must be traveling or climbing mountains or whatever. Adventure like on a physical level, but actually adventure can also be a very spiritual thing, emotional thing, psychological. And it could be, making a decision to leave a relationship, and not knowing what that's going to bring in your life, and not knowing how you're going to sort out the mess. And that itself is an adventure, right? It's not just I'm going to go backpacking in Colombia or something. It's really about making decisions that are a little bit risky, but owning that and expecting the best to come out of it, even though you actually don't know what's going to come out of it.
Yeah, and I think that what you said at the end kind of gets to what I think of as the adventure part, because certainly there is risk.
I think it is an element.
But it's not like I'm trying to cultivate and create more risk in my life. It's just that the adventures, the things that I want to create, as you say, physically, emotionally, spiritually, they're uncertain in a sense that I don't know exactly where I'm going. I have a sense of what I would like to do or create, but there's an uncertainty, so there's risk in uncertainty and not knowing. But actually, I've talked to other people about this. Even the people, or even when I've had 9-to-5 jobs and things seem very standard and kind of aware and known.
Yeah.
Actually, anything can happen, right? As you say, like a relationship can break up immediately. You can get laid off from a job. I mean, I've had that. Had a relation. I've had several relationships end quite quickly and suddenly. I've had be given a pink slip to say, oh, you've got 2 weeks left at your job.
Yeah. Nice.
So what is certain?
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think this then can become a very philosophical question, right? And I love philosophizing about stuff, and especially adventure because I love it. But you're right; it has I think the word more than risk is really the unknown, as you said it. There's an aspect of this endeavor that you're jumping on that has a level of unknown and uncertainty, which then corresponds to a potential risk. Something could happen, and also nothing could happen, and you don't know. and as human beings, we want to absolutely know. We want to be in the known. We want to stay safe. It's a survival thing. That's just what we do. But in a way, life is just a big adventure. If you think of adventure as going into the unknown, and not knowing what's going to come, then this is exactly what's going on here, essentially.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things that bring us together that we've spoken about is, there's a recognition of that, and I think some people recognize this sort of uncertainty, and then they're quite risk averse, or they're quite scared, or they don't know what to do. So they really limit themselves. Whereas I think what looks risky to other people, for us, is about cultivating that sense of adventure that, I don't think, certainly now at this point in my life, I don't think that I make risky decisions. I specifically create circumstances that have uncertainty. And I guess there is some risk, but I don't, it's not they don't feel like they're dangerous. I'm cultivating a sense of uncertainty because I know that actually in some way new things come to me, new awarenesses, new opportunities come, and it actually expands horizons, opportunities. And I've learned over, decades now to know, or to assume that I am going to be aware of the good opportunities, and also mindful of the negative, potential that can come out of something,
Yeah. I think, I've always been like that. I guess it's adventurous, like it's kind of a way, the way that I was brought up, or the circumstances in which I was brought up, that led me to travel here and there and have quite an unstable childhood, but at the same time stable. It's a little bit strange to explain. There was a lot of unknown, but yet there was a lot of pillars of stability, like my mom, my dad, my grandma, things that I knew, but everything around that was quite messy and chaotic sometimes, and unknown. And my dad always kept changing his plans and selling his business and starting a new business and moving here. Oh no, now we're moving there, and you'd have to start over again and make new friends and learn a new language and go to a new school, and there was definitely a sense of excitement every single time, but there was also a sense of like dread and like, oh my God. And I think it's not so much the fear of the unknown, it's for me at least, it was more like, can I handle this? There's an unknown, and am I up to the unknown? Can I handle the unknown properly? Am I capable of surmounting this? Am I capable of going through this unknown phase? And actually, when I look back, especially at my childhood, which were my really formative years, and even later on in my life, I realized in retrospect that the fear that I had, the positive things and the expansion, as you mentioned, the expansion that came with that particular adventure completely outweighs the fears and the doubts and the potential negative. Adventure has enriched my life so much, and my relationships, my understanding of people, my understanding of myself, my ability to deal with fear, my ability to deal with shit hitting the fan, like when you least expect it, like by repeatedly putting yourself in that unknown, you just, you do what any human being would do. You survive, you adapt and you learn. And then the stuff that you thought were absolutely nonsensical and crazy 10 years ago, you're doing them now, and you're like, yeah, I got this.
Yeah, and as you're speaking, because we sort of both acknowledge that we're adventurous people, and we cultivate this sense of adventure, and we can go into some, our adventures in personal life and professional life. But I just kind of want to maybe open the lid on this, because I think for some people listening, it might feel like, well, that's fine. You have an adventurous spirit. That's fine. You grew up like that. You learned that. And because I was thinking, does everybody have this, or do things happen? Because, there were definitely moments in my life where I went out on an adventure, on a relationship, or moving someplace, and it was a total fucking disaster. I mean, I drank to the bottom of many bottles of whiskey. I was borderline suicidal for a number of situations, because I was so upset at who I was and what was happening in my life. And so I don't know enough. It's like, was it my spirit? Was it, did I need to go through all those things? Because I was thinking, as you were speaking, you're talking about your own upbringing, and I grew up with my mother. It was just the two of us. I mean, my parents got divorced very, very early. I saw my father some, but it was basically just me and my mom. And she was an adventurous person. I think she saw the adventure of being, in the early 70s, being a single mom, which was, not the easiest thing to do, and making very little money. My mom, we were sort of, we weren't dirt poor, but we were not very well off. And she really, brought this sense of adventure into me, and we moved around quite a bit. I mean, we moved from city to city, and there is still, like, when I speak to my mom now, like, there are things that I can see that she's still adventurous about, but other things, like, for many, many, many things, and I don't think it's just her age, that it's like a sense of, oh, I'm not able to do that anymore. But she did close off about a lot of things. There were obviously things that happened that she just decided, okay, I'm going to play it safe. Or I want stability. I want safety. And no disrespect, everybody makes their own choices. I love my mom, and she, I know some of the things she went through as a kid that were really, really unsettling. And so she kind of went and said, well, that was so unsettling, and I don't want to experience I kind of don't want to experience that. Yeah.
No, I think I can actually recognize the same thing, kind of like in my mom. It's so weird. Like, she moved to the US like 5 years ago and decided, she was in France and she owned a restaurant, and it wasn't going well at all. And she's like, you know what? Screw this. I'm going to the US. I'm going to open my coffee shop. And so she moved to Portland and bought a coffee shop, and then her brother lives there, my uncle, and me and her brother, we actually had to sponsor her so she could get her green card. And that's a move that I never thought she would make, because I always had seen her really, really play it safe, working really, really hard, playing by the book, like being all too goody to my taste. And then she just like, decides that that's it. I'm off. Screw this. I'm getting a coffee shop. And now she has a coffee shop in Portland, Oregon, and she does French meetups in her coffee shop, and it's great. And people look at that and go like, oh my God, like, that's amazing. How, that's crazy. And she's 62 now. So, it's never too late, I'd say. But on the other hand, she plays safe everywhere else, like there's just that kind of like, she's just a really, really good girl, and plays by the rules and doesn't want to get into trouble, and would rather be stable and safe than having to deal with the stress of all of that. And I think what it comes down to is, there's something to be said about your values, like what's really important to you. And what that makes you do, like how that makes you behave in life. My mom is someone who values freedom a lot, and she felt that she wasn't free anymore in France, and she felt like USA was a better environment for her to be a business person, to own her business and to make her money without being heavily taxed all the time. And so that is what her value of freedom is, what made her take that particular risk and go on a particular adventure, because there was something there on the other side that was very, very important to her. And the risk was mitigated, because what was on the other side was more important, had more value. She wanted the freedom more than she feared the unknown of that particular adventure to move countries and buy a coffee shop.
Yeah, I mean, having lived in France for a couple of years, as you know, I can understand that sense of the land of the free, America, and I don't know if I told you this before, but the funniest thing I think that George Bush ever said, W, and when I realized he wasn't as stupid as he played on TV, he said, the problem with the French is they don't have a word for entrepreneur.
Yes, it's actually the English word entrepreneur.
Because even though it is it's a Latin-based word, it's a French word, they don't really reward this kind of like, well, you can go off and do it yourself, and bless France, it's a beautiful place to live. I appreciate it, and I know you spend time there. Anyway, and I was thinking, because we spoke about this, it's like, because you and I, and we can talk about some of our adventures, because like we've both gone from corporate or office-based work and now run our own businesses, which is certainly an adventure. Has its
every day.
Has its ups and downs, rewards.
Sometimes in the same hour, ups and down.
Exactly. And there's this kind of like people, that going back to entrepreneur, like you see those memes, it's like what people think it is, right? The Instagram kind of like walking on a beach, which we do have those moments, but there's also the moments where it's like, wow, it's 11 p.m. and I'm still working on the copy for this one post that I'm going to do. And I've been doing this, I've been doing these types of things for the last 6 hours, right? Because you are your own boss, right? And so how you run that business, what success means to you, what you want to create becomes a very, inside job, which obviously is an adventure in itself. But also, not to say that everybody has to do that, right? I mean, not to say that everybody has to go off and start their own business and be hustling, working every day, like that, because some people are very happy, they might decide to cultivate adventure in other things, and because it goes to what you were talking about before we got started, this idea, it's like being in line with yourself, and you spoke about it like in terms of values, right? And as running your own business, one of the things that certainly, if anybody's out there looking to run their own business or struggling with their own business, figure out what your values are. I think you and I were talking about this a few weeks ago, doing an exercise where, it's not like just pick them out of a hat. It may take hours or days or weeks really to kind of say, oh, right, whoa, because you may say like, my value is, I don't know, integrity. Well, that's a good word, but like, what does it actually mean, and what does it mean for you? And how do you actually instill the value of integrity as one of the top 3 or 5 or whatever it is, 7 concepts, these ideas that underpin the foundation for your business or your life, right? What are your values in life? And you said for your mom, freedom, right? So the ability to be outside of of France and set up her own business, run her own business. That to her is freedom, and so she is pursuing and following, going on the adventure of the freedom value.
Yeah, absolutely. That's I think finding your values is really, really important. And I didn't know how important it was until I did the exercise and I found my values. And then I realized that, very often people confuse values with how they would love things to be ideally. But actually your values are who you are inherently without even trying to, So what is just like by default, this is who you are. You're not even trying to make an effort. It doesn't cost anything to you to be free because that's just who you are and that's what you seek, naturally speaking, right? So if you try to set up values that you think you should have, and I think integrity sounds like a good one for me. It's like, I should have integrity as a value that would make me a good person, but really, is this how I do things in general? Yeah, sure, there's a level of integrity, but is that really like what turns me on? Like, is this the fuel that lights up my fire? It's not integrity. Like, that sounds freaking boring to me, but freedom and I've got another one, which is love and creativity and fun and exploration is one of my values. And sometimes people exploration, explore what, but I know what that means for me, right? And yeah, I think when you are able to nail your values and understand like who you are by default, like what is your true nature and what you are called or naturally compelled to do or attracted to. When you understand that, but you also accept that and you follow that lead, you'll find that you're able to deal with a lot more uncertainty than you thought. Because as I said, on the other side, there is something that really, really resonates with you, something that really attracts you, and that's really important for you. And then you overcome whatever you need to overcome, which I find very interesting, that you've got, it's always like this, why am I not creating $1 million house? Well, simply because I don't want it enough. Like I don't, if I really fucking wanted that, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on your podcast, but I'm French, so that's what I tend to do. It's one of my values. I'm kidding.
Profanity.
Profanity, yeah. But yeah, it's like, because I've known myself, and I think people in general know that if they really fucking want something, they will go at it. They will try hard. They will insist, and so you have to ask yourself, like, what's that thing that you really, really, really want, because that's gonna give you the drive and the patience and the tenacity to go through that sort of uncertainty and choppy waters and unknown, basically.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, it goes to this whole sense, it's like, well, how do you live in how do you live your true nature? How does one live one's true nature? And we don't really have, we've talked about this many times on the show, we don't really have systems or structures that give us as young adults or as adults to say, okay, here's the system that you can use to determine or create or find or cultivate your true nature and purpose, right? It's kind of, it's one of these like lovely buzzwords, like, oh, just go live your true nature and purpose. And people are like, what the? I mean, I was like, what? Like, what the fuck? Yeah. If I knew it, I would be doing it. Thank you very much. Like, master of the obvious. Like, yes. That sounds great, right? And because we're sort of inundated in sort of our early part of our life, we're probably inundated with family and our, local culture, our neighborhood, the city or the state or the country where we're from, that, kind of creates a set of values or instills a set of values on us, right? And that's not to say it's right or wrong. It's just, we have a conforming tendency, right? We're social creatures. So there's a part that's like, oh, okay, on some level, we kind of need or want to fit in as much as possible. And when we kind of, go out on our own at whatever age, 16, 18, 35, whatever, somebody decides to go off on their own, we don't, there's nothing out there that's like, okay, here, you are supported in going out and figuring out what your values are and testing them and being in the unknown, because, we live in a world where, the socioeconomic structure is, here, we'll tell you what your values are. Your values are this car or this much money or this type of lifestyle. Yeah, this bag, this bag. So it's one thing. I don't know. I don't think a lot of men, but certainly, men and women share some commonalities, like these shoes, right? But bag, I don't know. Maybe actually for backpack for like hikers and stuff.
Definitely.
But no, definitely. It's like, and so we kind of have these things put on us, and obviously, in the social media world, right? We see the Instagram post, the Facebook, and it's like, oh man, look at how these people are living. And that's what I should be doing. That's what I want. And as you say, there is a point that, we always can strive for things and go for things that we actually would really love. But when you look at somebody else and kind of have this, covetous, it's like, well, is that really what you want? Or do you just look at it and is there something else underneath it? Because, it's like you look at somebody who's living in a $10 million house, right? And you're like, oh, that's what I want. It's like, well, do you really want that? Or do you want luxury? Do you want freedom? Do you want space? Like, what are the things that are actually underneath that? That much more say than just this picture that, looks really beautiful, but so what?
Yeah, absolutely. No, definitely. You were saying something about, how do you find your true nature? And that's a fucking $1 million question, right? Right there. How do you find your true nature? Like I for many, many years, I spent my life kind of like wondering, like, what am I meant for? Like, why am I here? What's my purpose? Like, what am I here to do? God, please, tell me what I need to do, because I feel like I'm just being taken by the wind, and I'm not really, I don't really know what is it that I'm meant to be doing on this earth. And, I would argue that actually there is a way to find your true nature, and it's gonna sound really cheesy, but it's basically, listen to your heart. Like if you take a moment and you just forget about the money and the job and the responsibilities and blah, 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 and all the things that you think you need to do and the expectations you think others have about you, and you just, take some time and, potentially meditate if that's your thing, and just, get some quiet and really ask yourself, like, but what do I love? And it could be things, it could be people, it could be places, it could be feelings, it could be, freedom, it could be travel, it could be anything. For me, it's travel, it's cultures and meeting new people from all around the world and connecting and having fun and all of that, right? So, but there is I guess, it's not a one-time exercise. It's more of a decision to give yourself the space and the time to figure that out. And actually, as soon as you set the intention, it starts happening, and you start getting hints and clues, and you start being attracted. And you know what? I've always wanted, I've always wanted to learn how to drive a boat, and I have no idea why and how is that going to be useful to me. I don't work in a boating environment per se. I'm not asked to have a boat permit, in order to practice my job or whatever. But I'm just really attracted by it. I love the sea. I love the beach. I love being on a boat. I just love it. Like I remember when I was little with my dad and going on the boat and stuff. So I signed up to a boating training, and it wasn't cheap. It was actually everything I had in my account, and I didn't know how. It was. I had $400 on my account left, and the whole thing was 360, which was going to leave me with 40 quid for the rest of the month. And I've got money elsewhere and stuff, but I was like, no, I don't care to take that money from other accounts. I'm just gonna do this and see how it goes. And and I did my boating training. I passed. Thank you very much. And so now me and Taylor can go and hire a boat and go on a boat trip. So I don't know where it's taking me, but it's that kind of, I've learned to listen for these hints. I've learned to listen to, I think it'd be really fun if I knew how to drive a boat. I could go to Spain and rent a boat for the day and not have to worry about asking somebody else that I don't like to come and drive the boat for me or whatever. Like, it is freedom as well, that it is attached to freedom. It's also attached to adventure and exploration and stuff. And so I have no idea when I'm going to use this boat permit, but hey, I've got it now. And it was really fun. It was really fun for me to do that. I really, really enjoyed it. And I felt happy and I felt free. I was on the water and I felt really excited. And I think that's the, that is part of the adventure, is to listen to these little hints and say, you know what, I'm gonna follow that. I don't know where it's taking me, but this is something that I feel really attracted to. This is something that brings me joy, and so I'm gonna go and give it a try. And listen, like the amount of times that I went and did something just because I enjoy it, and something came out of it. I got a client, or I got a job opportunity, or I met someone really interesting. I became friends with them, just like information that I needed came to me because I followed, my heart, and I went for what I loved. And that in itself is a whole journey and an adventure. But, I'd say this is where you kind of start. What do you think, Tay?
Yeah, I mean, what comes to me, there's quite a few things that come to me. So let me try to respond in accord. The one thing that I really like and I agree with is, there's this sense, I think, when people get started on, let me go find my true nature and purpose, that it's this kind of like one discrete thing. Okay, I'm I don't know, a professional violinist, or I'm a coach, or I'm a middle manager of, I don't know, like paper.
Yeah, the Guardian.
Yeah, or something, and the thing that you allude to there, I really resonate with, is that you start to get a sense, and then you start to play around.
Yeah,
with
play
things,
around. Yeah.
Right? I mean, it could be that, you go off and you get your boating license and you don't ever really do a lot of boating with it, but it actually leads you to something else. But there is this sense of, there's a truth to it. I mean, there's also this sense of, because I do think that there are things that I think, a whim comes to me, an idea comes to me, and then there's a sense of discernment. It's like, well, is this really in line with my true heart? Or am I just kind of bored and trying to find something to distract me? And this looks interesting. And then there has to, come, it's like, well, is this really in line, as you say, with my heart? Or am I just kind of trying to create something for the sake of it, or create an adventure when it's not really there. So there's,
am I trying to impress someone, or am I trying to look relevant, or
like make up for lost time. I was like, I was supposed to be boating when I was a kid. Like I looked at that. I was going to do a bunch of sailing, and I do like the idea of sailing, but there was a kind of sense like, I was supposed to do that a lot when I was a kid, and I didn't. So it's like, okay, well, I don't. It's not true for me to do that right now. So I mean, if it becomes true, cool. But the sense that we're not one-dimensional creatures or two-dimensional creatures, right? We have all these things, and what I find is that the more I step into my heart, there is a consistency, there is a thread to it. You and I,
themes.
Exactly. You and I really share the theme of adventure. I mean, adventure is one of my values. You have, what'd you say? Freedom, exploration, right? So they're quite similar, but and I really had to think about that and say like, oh yeah, well, and when I created this podcast, right? I mean, it came out of the sense of adventure. It has the name adventure in it, and it's something that's very close to me, close to my heart. I've been on a lot of adventures, physical, spiritual, emotional, financial, psychological, all these things. And it's something I cultivate, working in the coaching field. The clients I have, they come to me because on some level, they are looking for some type of adventure. They may not even know what it is. They may say, I want you to help me with this. And what comes out of it, I'm sort of aware, it's like, well, there's maybe something more. And over time, it's like, oh, actually, there's an adventure aspect. I do want to, create this other thing in my family, in my expression, in my personal life, whatever it is, my professional life. So and that starts to expand. Like you start to see how you can incorporate all these other things into who you are, right? It gives this like other dimension to you. Like you say, like why where did the idea of boating come from? But yourself well enough that you're at least willing to give it a go, right? It's not like, we were saying in the beginning, there's nothing certain. You may have spent 360 pounds and never use it, right? But following it and saying, oh, I enjoyed that. Oh, I'd like to explore this and pursue it, and see what comes from that.
The amazing thing is that something amazing happens when you do that, is that others get to see it. And then they are inspired, and maybe I don't know if you're into boating or anything, but I posted my little stories of my boating training on Instagram, and I was actually surprised to see how many people were actually watched all the stories, and I thought not everyone is into boating. People are gonna think I'm, what's she doing now? What's Chloe up to again? Oh gosh, and to some extent I felt ridiculous. I did feel stupid. I felt stupid. I felt ridiculous. I felt immature. For doing a boating training that I have no idea where it's going to take me. I don't need it per se. It was kind of like a luxury, and I chose to put all my money on that instead of buying food. But that was my problem, and my husband's also. But and I shared that with him, and he understood, because he understand that when there's something that calls you, it's not about, is it practical, does it make sense, are others going to accept it, are people going to watch my stories on Instagram if I put it there, like, oh, what are people going to say? It's not about that, or even the circumstances. It's really just about following that and trusting your true nature to tell you, trusting your own heart to know what it is that you need in order to be happy, you know, instead of trusting the media and the adverts and the the social media posts of everybody else. But then it turns out, you know, people are like, oh, that's amazing. How was it? You know, like, how come you decided to do this? Like, that's super cool, you know, and others see that, and I felt like a dumbass, but I went with it, and I was like, listen, you know, I know better now than to let my fears and doubts take over. I'm just gonna follow this and see what happens. And people see that and are inspired, and maybe not inspired to do a powerboat training, but maybe they get inspired to do what they actually are attracted to, you know. So yeah, that's pretty magical to me.
Yeah, and you've, you know, really hit the nail on the head of, you know, this podcast, right? I mean, this is about inspiring others. I mean, you know, hopefully we entertain people with some of our stories, but really this is about, you know, engaging and inspiring other people to go on their adventure of self-discovery, self-expression. You know, it's why I do what I do professionally. It's why I do what I do for me. I just believe that, you know, and it's why the vast majority of my good close friends now are also on paths of adventure, of self-discovery and self-exploration, expression in many different ways, right? I mean, you and I really share travel as an adventure, but some people are very happy to sit in wherever they are, but they're doing, you know, amazing things with, you know, writing or painting or dance or with their children or, you know, whatever it is. You know, it's like, what is the adventure that you want to create for your life? Like, this is it, you know. And you know, this, I think one of the advantages that's come out of the last, you know, 18 months of sort of weird global crisis and everybody kind of having to figure out what life is really about is, you know, this opportunity to say, well, what do I want to make my life about, right? I mean, we've kind of been, we found ourselves in this world where all of a sudden the things that we just kind of said, oh yeah, we just assumed that things were as a particular way, whether they were good or bad. We didn't really even, most people didn't even have time to think about.
That's
just like,
very
well,
true. Yeah.
I don't know, like this is how the subways run. This is how travel works. This is how I get my food. This is what's on TV. This is what I do for health. And, you know, the last 18 months or so, everybody, I think a lot of people in lots of different areas have started to say, what am
I doing this again?
what am I doing and why? And, you know, some people may come to the decision, oh, this is why I'm doing it. And I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing because this is what meaningful to me. And that's great, right? And other people are going to say, wow, I was doing this because I was just walking aimlessly and as if there was nothing else to do. And actually, it turns out I have lots of other options, or I don't really relate to this. And so it's putting people in this, you know, real, and you know, it's obviously for some people, it is quite challenging because it's, you know, you and I have said, you know, we've kind of cultivated this and specifically go to the unknown, right? As a way, it's like, okay, well, that's, you know, it's actually our daily practice, right? Let me just step into the unknown and be with this, right? Without having to figure it all out, without having to plan everything out, but to really, and to listen into the unknown. What does it give me? Because you start to realize that, you know, then things really open up, right? Then, because you realize that the unknown is actually giving you, you know, where and why did the signal of going to do a boating, you know, lessons to come from, right? Something, you know, and you could have spent your 360 pounds on anything, right? Many things, you know.
I definitely know that I could have.
Maybe food, maybe a bag, but, you know, all sorts of things, you know, maybe another course, or just said, well, I'm just going to put that away, or I'm going to invest it. I mean, there's a gazillion things you can do. So, you know, you get to choose. And then, so what does that mean that you have this choice, and what do you actually take the time to choose? Then what is actually in line with my values? What is in line with that, that heart that you spoke about, like really being in line with what your with what your heart is saying. And that in itself is an adventure, because you don't come out of the womb and it's like, okay, here's the path to your heart, and just walk that straight path, and
so
cool.
You're going to be a dentist, and you're going to make X amount, and you're going to be married,
live in this place, and
yeah. No, I think the last 18 months have been very, very interesting. And even like, I don't know about you, but I feel like I knew that I could create, and I knew that I could go on adventures, and I trusted myself sufficiently to know how to deal with unforeseen circumstances. But this was an unforeseen circumstance that I never, that was very unforeseen. So, that was just like, okay, I had so many plans. Like 2020 was going to be the best year for me. Like literally, I just came back from, an amazing Christmas in Portland, Oregon with my husband and my whole family. And, and then slowly, COVID came into the background. Oh, this virus, blah, 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 blah. And then, as always in the West, we're like, nah, it's not coming here, whatever. I'm just going to move on with my life. And we were going to get married in Mauritius. And, and so we had started the plans for the wedding, and it was going to be a big fat Asian wedding.
I remember I was looking to book a ticket.
Yeah. And, and everything that comes with it, and the photographer, and we booked our tickets to Mauritius. We booked a hall. We booked a venue there. We booked a beautiful house that you totally missed on, Taylor, on the beach. We were going to do a beautiful beach wedding dinner. It was just going to be fucking amazing, right? It was also going to cost shitloads of money. And then this whole, pandemic came and completely like destroyed my plans. I was going to go on a Hindu in Marrakesh with my girlfriends. I also had planned a Mexican road trip with my coaching clients. And I had 2 people signed up, and, I had created the whole itinerary. I was super excited. I had bought my ticket. People had put down deposits. I was like, yes, we are doing this. And then, everything just stopped. And I was very, very angry, very, very, very angry at life, at the government, at circumstances. And I felt like my freedom had been taken away from me. Talk about like values. I felt like I couldn't exercise my value, and exploration, forget about it. I just felt like the core of who I was had, I was told, you can't be that, you can't do that, forget about that stuff, And so, but despite all of that, we still got married. And I still went to Mexico, but it became a honeymoon instead of a trip with my clients. We never managed to go to Mauritius, but we had a beautiful wedding in Battersea Park, and you were there. And it was perfect. And it was actually exactly what it had to be. And it was about kind of like, it took us a lot of refocusing on, but what is it that actually matters to us? There was the whole grand aspect of this wedding. And then due to circumstances, we had to refocus, but it was very important to us to stay true to what we wanted the wedding to be. And we realized, it wasn't about the dress, or it wasn't about, how many flowers and what type of photographer. It wasn't about that. It was about being surrounded by the people that love us and that we love, and creating a beautiful moment. That was what was really important to us. And that is exactly what we created. And there was so much unknown into that. We had to postpone 3 times our wedding date. every time I got a dress, we pushed a date, and it went from a summer dress to a winter dress to a spring dress, and it was crazy. Like I had a couple meltdowns and on the way. But I guess the reason why I'm saying all of this is, there was massive unknown, like I had never experienced before, and not only unknown, but so many rules and limits and and things that you could do before that now became illegal, and so how do you continue to be yourself, and how do you continue to create in those circumstances? And it was, again, what really saved us was our ability to refocus on what actually truly mattered to us and what our hearts really wanted to create for this wedding. And we did the same thing for the honeymoon, and like that. And every time following, okay, but what do I love? Okay, but what is it that I love? And like that, and like that, and like that. And eventually you come out at the end of the tunnel and you're like, fuck me, I survived. And that was amazing. I created this and this and that, and coaching clients, and my wedding, and beautiful dress, and people I loved, and a beautiful honeymoon. And just like, despite the circumstances, and I thought my life was done, and turns out, by just following and leaning into my heart, I just kept on creating. And I know you've done the same.
Yeah. And, thanks for sharing, because it's really good, very vivid, and real. Like I spoke to you many times during all this, and so I was very aware of what you were going through, and obviously the challenge, right? You're in a relationship, you have plans to get married, and your husband's from Mauritius, and you've got family all over the world, and all these things, and there's a part of you that wants this sense of whatever it is, right? And it's such a good example of what we've been talking about, how it's like you're still creating an adventure, right? I mean, there's still, everything that you described, because I was, we spoke many times during the last year and a half, 2 years.
You witnessed my meltdowns and my ups and downs. And
yeah, well, you witnessed a few of my meltdowns as well, so that's cool. But this sense of refocusing, right, and actually getting to, because it really helps you, like, it's like, what is important? What is your value, right? What is your heart saying? Because we can say, like, oh, my heart's saying this, and I've got to go make X amount of money, and then I can have that, right? And like, like you said, like, yes, there's something beautiful. It's like, oh, you could have this house on the beach and this many people, and and that sounds great. And I'm sure it would have been beautiful, right? It's not to say it wouldn't have been, but given all the circumstances and given all the the reality of what was possible, like, you could not travel into Mauritius, right? People could not go into Mauritius, right? It was a closed country, so that wasn't going to happen. And all the, as you say, all the restrictions here on numbers, and that was changing. And I really, like, I remember speaking to you about this. I don't know, it was like a week or maybe within a couple of weeks before the actual wedding day, and I asked you, I said, what are you creating? Because we focus on end results, right? Call it different things, but vision, or it's an end result of something that we choose to create, right? So that could be a book, a relationship, a wedding. And I remember you said, oh, we're creating a beautiful moment. And I thought, oh, it's it's like, because it's an evocative thing, right? It's just 3 simple words, right? And so what does that mean? But in the work that you do, that we do, and that your husband does, right? Like, there's an opportunity to really be with that. It's like, well, what does that mean? What does that mean for you, right? Because it could mean something different for me, or for a listener, or whomever. And for the two of you to really say, okay, but this is what we're creating. And so when the shit hits the fan, and this can't happen, and this person can't come in the country, or we can't have this extra thing we wanted, Like all these things come up, right? And there's this not only an opportunity, but probably a propensity, like there's a different word. Anyway, to temptation, really, to go into what's wrong. It's so easy to say, oh, but this is why, and I've got to fix this, otherwise this thing is ruined. And see what we do, and it's really such a great example. It's like, yeah, but it doesn't matter whether so-and-so can't get in the country, whether we can't have this thing at the reception, whether we can't do it at this time, whether these number of people can be there. It's like, we are creating a beautiful moment. And having been there, having been one of the privileged, few to be there live with it, like it was just like this whole afternoon and evening, and probably the whole weekend for you guys, like a beautiful moment. Like it wasn't just 1 second. It was like that was the entire weekend. And even to the extent, like when you did the because that was the kind of the civil ceremony. Even the religious ceremony, right? Like to be able to do that. How unique, right? To have like this
completely illegal.
Okay, well that's not the point I was going to say. No, because like to do a ceremony over Zoom to everybody around the world, right? And to have people, like, I remember seeing all these people like dressed up in their living rooms and really just being like, well, we're here to celebrate, So
yeah, definitely. It's and you think it stopped with the opening and the this and that, but do you know what? I feel like this whole pandemic and the lockdowns and the restrictions that came with it, it was kind of like a in your face version of what life actually throws at you, and it was just an exaggerated version of shit hitting the fan, unknown, uncertainty, fear, doubts, like, oh my God, life's completely being shifted and then turned around, and families being divided and stuff. So in a way it was like really big, but it was a massive reminder of, for me at least, that's how I took it, that every breakdown is an opportunity for a breakthrough. And what I choose to create in spite of the circumstances, not actually, I don't want to use in spite, I'm going to say regardless of the circumstances, not looking at, okay, well, these are my circumstances, what can I create within those circumstances? No, it's like, I'm going to create this, and I understand that this fits very much outside of the circumstances, but I choose to not limit my experience of life based on my circumstances. I'm going to go for this thing that I love, that really, appeals to me, that really turns me on. But yeah, I digress. But what I was saying is, yes, it was an exaggerated version of the shit that can happen in your life at any time. Yeah. Anytime when you're going for something, when you're going for something big, and in a way, it was funny because I really had expected 2020 to be fucking amazing. I had all these plans, and it literally, like, I was gonna travel the entire world. Like in 2020, I had like 7 trips planned, and it was gonna be like one after the other, and I had my tickets, and I was like, yeah, I'm doing this. And it's almost like the bigger the creation, the bigger the setback. And I was like, fuck me, did I create this COVID pandemic? Like, if this is my reality and I create, oh my God. I was like, this is my fault. I did this. But yeah, essentially it was like, oh, wow, I'm reminded that, before COVID, I created things that I loved. I went for things that I loved, regardless of my circumstances. And well, now I've got a, slightly bigger set of circumstances, but the actual concept does not change, And if anything, that is when you actually get to test,
Yep.
you know, your truth and your, it's kind of like that's where you get to really see like what actually really matters to you. Like, what is it that you truly want?
And what you're capable of.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, because, you know, and just to kind of bring it back, right? Because there are all these things that, you know, you could choose to create and could focus on, and what's happening and who's telling you what you can or cannot do. And there is this temptation, and there's a part of you, of course, that's like, this sucks, right? How dare this person tell me this? Or, you know, and not to put down like the health or other reasons that comes into place, but, you know, I think the vast majority of people I've spoken to have been affected, right? Of course we have, and it's limited, the things that we knew or took for granted, and, you know, that's a great opportunity. As you say, it's a great opportunity to like, well, okay, well then let's look at that, you know, what then is important to me. And so when, you know, this wedding and this reception and this other thing are canceled or can't happen or blah blah blah, cool, well, as you say, it's not in spite of that, but it actually doesn't really matter what's happening, because, you know, a beautiful moment was created within the confines, the limitations of what was allowed for a wedding here in the UK. And it was absolutely a beautiful moment, and it heightened, you know, I mean, I think the opportunity for everybody to, you know, I've been to many weddings, and, you know, there is always this sense of, as much as two people coming together and professing their love and their commitment to each other, what I learned many years ago, and the reason, you know, I think that we have weddings and receptions and have this public thing, is because it's about the friends and the family coming together to bear witness and say, we're giving energy to this union. We believe in it. We are acknowledging and giving our energy, our, not just our approval, but like, you know, we want this to succeed, and so putting that into the space of a ceremony and a reception. And you can feel, you know, I mean, I was talking to you know, the photographer who we had to, you know, I introduced you to, Helen, and you know, she was saying, she's like, you know, this was really special wedding, and she's a wedding photographer. She's like, I've been to a lot of weddings, and no disrespect to other people, you know, a lot of people just come together, and there's a lot of people, and that sense of what we're here to celebrate is, it's like, we're just here at another wedding. And she said, you know, there was this palpable sense of like, and maybe it's, you know, I think it's attributable to the two of you and the union that you've created and the people that you brought and the people that chose to come. And probably also sense it's like, wow, we actually get to come out and see human beings again. Well, we're going to celebrate, you know, this is important. We're going to celebrate this, and all of that, as you say, regardless of what was really happening, all of that helped to create, you know, this beautiful moment.
Absolutely. Thanks. It was a beautiful moment, and it just felt effortless, you know. And that's the thing, is that I feel like, you know, when I know for myself, when I'm going for what I love, and I'm hitting wall after wall after wall, setback after setback after setback, it's probably a good time for me to, you know, stop, refocus, and make sure that, you know, I'm focused on the right thing, and I'm going for the right thing, and I'm going for that thing that my heart wants me to create. It's almost like I am subservient to my own heart, you know. I'd like to think of it like that, is that because if I start listening to this, I just get distracted, and I do the things that I think others want me to do, and, you know, trying to get acknowledgement and validation and this and that and money, and not that money is bad or that validation is bad. It's just that these are false end results for me, you know. That's not what truly matters to me. And so very often, refocusing at, okay, but what is it that I would love? Okay, a beautiful moment. Amazing. Let's call the venue and let's be in that energy of, I'm here to create a beautiful moment. And I remember telling, the wedding planner and the venue, listen, like, I'm here to create a beautiful moment, and passing that energy on, and there's an element of letting go, I know what I'm going for. I don't need to know exactly how it's going to happen. But I trust that it's going to happen because I want it to happen, and that's it. I'm going back to Mexico in November, and that's what I would love, And literally 4 days after we came back from our honeymoon, Mexico went into the red list, and I was like, oh gosh, like, how interesting, I'm like, oh yeah, I really want to come back here and stay for 3 months, and then, oh, but Mexico's and people are like texting you, oh, Mexico's on the red list, but but how are you gonna go? And and all of that just comes and contributes to your doubts and your fears and stuff. But would I really love to go back to Mexico and spend the winter there? Fuck yeah. I think even you, Taylor, would love that. So
I may see you there. There's
exactly.
So,
as I'm saying that, I'm like, oh, what's obvious, Taylor?
Yes.
I might actually meet you there.
Exactly.
But yeah, so now Mexico's on the red list, and business hasn't been amazing in the last few months for me. I had a very good 2020, but this year has been very slow. And so there's this whole like, okay, well, this is what I would really love. I don't know how I'm going to pay for it. I mean, I could use my savings, but I don't really want to use my savings. So is there a way for me to create that? And it turns out I got a job. It's a contract for 4 days, and it's going to pay very well. And then I got another contract, which is also going to pay quite well. And it was completely unexpected. And you see, you go for what you love, and you don't need to know. And this is the adventure, right? This is the gold that's to be found in adventure land, is that you go for what you love, and you don't need to know how it's going to pan out, and how you're going to create that, and how you're going to get to Mexico, and how you're going to afford to stay there, and what you're going to do there for 3 months by yourself, all that kind of stuff. And then what are people going to say, and blah, 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 blah. And this whole like chit chat inside of my head, which really is not that useful, because all that matters is that I'd love to go to Mexico for winter. It's like, I'm here to create a beautiful moment. I'm here to spend winter in Mexico. That's it.
Sounds like another beautiful moment, and I think we've created one here today. So thank you for this beautiful moment.
Well, you're very welcome. Thank you for having me, and I hope that we managed to inspire people, and in our ups and downs in this conversation, and we touched upon a lot of things, and I think we could go on for hours. I could go on for hours, but
I know you could. Well, I could as well. That's
but yeah, I truly, genuinely hope that people who see us going for what we love are inspired to go for what they love, and or at least start on that journey of finding out what is it that they love.
Well, I mean, I think back to my own mentors, whether they plan to be or not, and it's the people who were living their truth. I mean, I just remembering a guy who, when I was in my early 20s, I was sort of fumbling around, didn't know what I wanted to do. Had come out of university, had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do. Absolutely no idea at all. And I ended up working as an apprentice blacksmith, as you do, and metal sculptor. So
I worked. Amazing! I did not know that about you.
Yeah, and it was another adventure. And the guy who I originally worked for was a metal sculptor, and I apprenticed with him for a couple of years. And he shared it eventually, after the first year or so, we ended up sharing a studio space with a guy who had been a tenured professor. And he left being a professor to be an artist, to teach art, to make his own art. And I just remember thinking, like, wow, like, he didn't do that for me, and we were sort of passing friends, but it's such an influence on me. I mean, he had this, I'd been in university, felt like I needed to learn, and I was quite good at learning. I probably still am. I was quite good at kind of the book learning. I mean, even after that, I went to law school for 3 years and worked as a lawyer. So I kind of went back to that mind, but it really had a sense inside of me. It's like, well, what is it what can I create, right? And I suppose in a way I needed to go back and try that corporate, very standard thing and excel at it. I think I did quite well.
Yeah.
But there was also this sense of quickly I moved. Well, first I went to New York, and then I went to Tokyo, and then came here to London, all with my job, because it was a sense like, wow, these are adventures that I can take even within the sort of confines of a very, very corporate life. So yeah, I mean, I'm quite sure that was our intention, to inspire. So I know we have, or I assume we have.
Let's assume we have. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. And if there was one thing that I'd like to leave the listeners with is what is it that you want to create in your life? What is that thing that you're really called to do, you feel attracted to, and you haven't really fully acknowledged it, or you've tried to ignore it and it's been too long now. It's like that boat license, it's been in my head for a couple of years, and I was just like, oh, this is ridiculous. How is this going to help me? But I don't know. I just did it this week, and I'll report back to you if something amazing happens following that. But what is that thing that you
well, we can follow your stories of you boating and driving boats around the world, certainly in Mexico this winter.
Definitely hope so. Yeah.
And since you brought it back, that it reminded me of something I wanted to share earlier, because I think there is a sense of we come to our own, following our own hearts, and you can go through exercises of doing that. And I came across something earlier this summer that was really helpful. I mean, I run my own business and have been following my heart for a while, and yet there's always something to learn. And I was doing an exercise that I came across in a book around kind of this kind of entrepreneurial thing. And the author suggested something I thought was fantastic. He said, first of all, go take whatever it was. Basically it was 2 questions. What do I like doing? And what am I good at? Right. And there's an opportunity to kind of marry those two. This is from I can't remember the name of the book, but the author is John Lee Dumas, who kind of got Guinness Book World Records because he was producing a podcast a day for like 3 or 4 years, or I think he's now into like 7 years. Thousands of podcasts. And he talked to entrepreneurs. Anyway, he wrote a book that just came out recently, and he said, answer those 2 questions. What do you like, and what are you good at? And where you find those 2 overlap is where you really find what your groove is, right? It's an opportunity to find what your heart is about. But then he said something really interesting. He said, now go ask 3, 5 friends, family members the same question, and ask them, what do I like and what am I good at? Right. And so I asked, in fact, I think I asked her husband as one of my contacts, to say, what me, but from all sorts of different ways. And what do you judge that I like, and what do you judge that I'm good at? And to see how much overlap there was from what I got, but also to see how much I had not taken into account. And then of course I have to decide whether that's valid or not, but to really see that, be like, oh, I hadn't valued this is something I'm good at, or that this is something I really like. I kind of had looked over that, Or I can see something and say, yeah, I see that, but that doesn't really ring true. It's not something I'm going to do for decades to come or something.
Yeah. No, definitely. I've had similar questions like that actually, one question got me started on this whole journey, as a matter of fact. I was very, very depressed. I was going to leave my ex-husband. I was always sick. I was making minimum wage. I was working full-time job. It was very, very, very sad. And I saw this question, which was, when are you at your happiest? And where and with who? And what are you doing? And I answered these questions, and it was like, when I'm in an airport, when I'm traveling, when I meet people from different cultures, and that really got me started on like, oh my God, this is the core of who I am. And I've spent 28 years trying to ignore that, or thinking that it was useless. And then actually, when I started this journey, I really, really fully leaned into that, and my leaning into that, which was my true nature, right? Airport, travel, culture, languages, that led me to where I am now, which is exactly where I have been wanting to be. So, don't underestimate the power of following your heart, as cheesy as it may sound. Yeah,
I think it's the only thing.
Yeah, it is the only thing. And
really, when you get down to it,
if you allow me to share this, but you can edit it out if you don't want it. But I actually have an online course that's called How to Find Your Purpose.
Yeah.
And it's literally 5 hours of me talking to you in videos and several exercises and stuff. And I don't pretend to say that this is the key to success, but if you have no clue where you're going, and if you have never really if this is a question that arises to you, like what is my true nature, who am I, where am I going, what's my purpose, what direction do I want to take in my life, I'd say it would be worth giving the online course a shot, because it I use all the tools that Taylor also knows that are very, very useful. And my end result with that online course was to really empower people and help them find their way, their direction. So,
well, we'll have a link to it in the show notes, so people can find it easily. It won't be edited out. So no, this is also, it's really an opportunity to showcase what guests and people do. So
thanks. Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. And as I said, I really, really hope that this was inspiring and that people get lots of ideas. And following this episode, you get emails from people, oh my God, I listened to episode X, and after that, my life completely changed,
I have no doubt that that's what will be happening. Cool, Chloe. Thanks so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me, and good luck with the podcast, and good luck to all of you listeners in your life adventures.
And our life adventures ahead. Yeah.